welcome to the Think MHK podcast presented by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. On this podcast, you will hear from a variety of people from across the region, including community leaders and business owners. You will hear their Manhattan stories and hopefully get to know your friends and business associates a little better. Thanks for tuning in today. With us today is another one of our 20 under 40 winners, Peter Oppelt. Peter wears a couple of hats in town. One of the ones that I work with him the most on, obviously, is his role as commissioner. But we're going to learn more about Peter and some of his other business dealings and things that he does in the community. So Peter, welcome to the Think MHK podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah. So why don't you start a little bit tell us a little bit about yourself, where you came from, how you ended up in Manhattan, and maybe what do you do for a living?
Sure. So I came to Manhattan via Fort Riley, as many of us do. You know, I grew up in Colorado Springs and spent 9 years in the Army. My last 3 were here on Fort Riley. And when I was looking at getting out towards the end of that, decided that K-State would be a really nice place to pursue an education. And I had bought a house while I was in the Army. So my wife and I decided this was a good place to stick around. I spent 3 years at K-State, got a degree in economics. Again, had the opportunity to move to Kansas City, but we decided we didn't want to leave, and we've been here ever since. So this is home now.
And your day job is?
I have one of those weird jobs that you don't really know what it means, but I work in data and analytics for Travelers Insurance.
And you do that kind of home-based? Is that?
Yes, very much. Okay. I go to Hartford to their home office about once a year. Other than that, staring at it.
I've been there. It's in Connecticut, right?
Yeah. It's a really cool town, but it's enough to help me realize that I really like working from home.
Yeah. So not a lot of people know about your military background. What did you do in the Army?
I'd had a couple of jobs. When I first enlisted, I was an ammunition specialist, and then I went to school for explosive ordnance disposal, and I did that for about 3 years at the end of my career.
And that was here for?
Yeah, that was here at Fort Riley.
Yeah. So you kind of had the double. We hear people sometimes, well, I moved here for Fort Riley, or I moved here to go to school at K-State. You did both.
I did, yeah.
So what was your experience like at Kansas State?
It was great. K-State has a really good non-traditional student community, and they do a lot of really great support for non-traditional students. It was really fun for me to watch my younger aged peers make the mistakes that I probably would have made if I had gone to college right out of high school. But, I was able to get through the challenges we had. We had our son my second semester, and he was born very premature. So, dealing with finals and trying to drive back and forth to Topeka to be with him in the NICU was really a challenge, but the professors were really great. So really, I think K-State has a really great non-traditional student program.
So we were talking a little bit before we started recording that I think you're the fourth set of spouses that have appeared on the podcast. So your wife was on, actually, I think the first year that we started recording, she was a nominee for Small Business of the Year, and of course she owns Therapy.
Yeah, she's way cooler than I am.
Yeah, well, I didn't say that, but she does make really good pies. So talk a little bit about being a small business owner, at least from a spousal standpoint, it's been like for your family.
Yeah, well, I own 0% of the business. That is all hers, but she had this really, really strong passion for service. She had been in the hospitality industry for a long time and started making pies. I remember one of the first time she decided to try making a pie, it took her about an hour to get the crust into the pie tin, and there were a lot of curse words involved as well. But now she's just flourishing. So she started making 1 or 2 at a time, and then decided one year for Thanksgiving that she was going to advertise and sell them to folks. And she made 30 or 40 and thought that was incredible, which it was. Mm-hmm. The next year, I think she got up to over 100. And then we decided that she wanted to do it full time, and ended up moving into the house that we have because it had space that we could build out a home kitchen for her and kind of reduce the overhead. It's really hard for food businesses to get started. I mean, any business really to get started. Food businesses, especially, just because of some of the requirements that the state has, for health and safety, of course. But that stuff's expensive. And so to minimize that overhead, we said, well, we'll use some of our house. And that worked for a while. Then she quickly grew out of it. Even after she had grown out of it, we made it work. And she made it work, really. And then she moved downtown. And it's been just incredible. She's got 11 employees. So.
That's awesome. And she's done great. She had one of the more memorable lines when she was talking about the inspirational people in her life. And one was her grandmother, who she called an old battle axe. I think is that she called.
She was.
So we enjoyed talking to her, but we're here to talk about you. So you're now city commissioner, and maybe talk a little bit about what went into the decision to say, you know what, I'm not busy enough in my career and helping my wife and raising kids, and so I'm going to do this. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, I've always really thought that people should give back to their communities and be involved in their communities, and this was just a way that I felt that I could use my abilities the best. I have always really been interested in staying involved and engaged. It's easy to kind of see a lot of the same people get involved. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I couldn't be frustrated with that if I wasn't willing to do something myself. So I talked with a friend of mine who was on the city commission in Junction City. I talked with some current commissioners just about the time requirements and things like that. Had a lot of conversations with my wife, and we decided that it would be okay for me to go for it. I did, and met some really great people that introduced me to more really great people, and I had a lot of really good support throughout my first campaign. So, is
it hard to put yourself out there to be? I mean, I know in theory, being voted for or not being voted for, they're not judging you as a person, but it kind of probably feels that way, right?
Yeah, and it is. And I think one of the hardest parts that I did not realize that when I got into it was asking for money. It costs money to run a campaign, and asking people who I've never met before to, be generous with their funds to help me serve the community. It was really hard, and I spent a lot more time than I expected doing that.
Because it was a pretty crowded field.
Yeah, right? Luckily we didn't have a primary because we had 4 open seats.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there were still 9 or 10 people that ran. But when you're getting into it, everyone who's involved, and they didn't know who I was. Right. So I'm just some guy asking for support, and luckily I was able to convince enough people that I would be okay, and I got the opportunity to serve.
Good. And we are glad to see that, and it's good to have young people engaged and involved, and appreciate your willingness to do that, and your family's willingness to give up the time with you to do that as well, because I know that does take it's enormous amount of time, and I don't want to let that to go unnoticed. So you were nominated to be 20 under 40, and then were chosen. And so talk about the kind of the reaction you had when you found out you were nominated, because that's a process, right? You're nominated, and then we ask you to apply.
Sure.
And so kind of how you felt through that, and then when you found out you won, what was your reaction to that?
I mean, it's an honor that people have recognized me as a leader in the community, and kind of a surprise. I know that I am out there, but just to be grouped in with a lot of the same the talented people that were also in my class this year is really an honor, and so I was really surprised and happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and it was certainly well deserved. So you talked about the decision you made. Maybe let's go back to a little bit when you said you were in the military and you moved here. So you went ahead and bought a house when you were in the military. So at some point through that process, was that we're buying a house because we know we're going to stay, or was we're buying a house just?
I was buying a house because I wanted the military to pay for me to establish equity.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a financial decision.
Okay. So then somewhere in that period you said, we're going to stay here. And I know you talked a little bit about that early on, but what really went into that decision to decide you wanted to stay? And why do you stay?
We looked at our options. And like I said, I had an offer in Kansas City after I graduated, and I grew up in Colorado Springs, both places that a lot of people from, a lot of K-State graduates, they go either east or west, right?
Yeah, Colorado and Kansas City.
Just really started thinking about what it would be like living there as an adult, trying to raise a family. Every time I go to visit my family in Colorado, it seems like the city has grown out an extra layer like an onion. They've added another layer of suburb out, and it just keeps going east because, they're right up against the mountains.
Yeah, sure.
And it is just so sprawling, and geographically large. There's not quite a community feeling there. There are pockets of community around Colorado Springs, but it definitely doesn't have the kind of community. And I think Kansas City is similar too. Not to knock it, there are plenty of good things about living in a large metro area, but the longer we lived in Manhattan and the more times we would go out and just see random people that we know and just be able to say hello to people and have a conversation that you weren't expecting to have, we really realized that we wanted that where we're, to settle down. And I think really, like, when I look at Tiffany's business, that would not have been as successful I don't think in a larger community because she was able to have such an impact, a concentrated impact, and there was just, people here care so much about the local businesses that you really don't get that quite as much in a larger city.
Yeah, it really, some of the suburbs are really good at that, but as a general rule, if you're in those cities proper, it is a lot harder to sort of make a name for yourself. Yeah. So you certainly probably don't get the opportunity to be in leadership and, city commission and those kind of things if you go into places like that either. So this soon. So, and you have kids, right?
We have one. Okay. He's a third grader at Marlatt. So.
Okay. And what's that experience been? The 383?
It's great. I served on the Marlatt PTO for a couple of years, and that was really great to be involved and help on the fundraising and things like that, and kind of see a little bit of the nuts and bolts on how the schools are run and things like that. I think I would like to serve on like a site council and things like that, and be kind of more involved in the curriculum part as well. But it was really cool just to be really deeply involved in that and help the school grow a little bit. But Marlatt's a phenomenal school. We couldn't be happier with it.
Yeah. So one of the things that you did, which is unusual for a remote worker, you got super involved in young professionals with our organization, so HYPE, and we don't see that very often, right? Most of our HYPE members are attached to a local employer. And their local employer is the one that says, you should go do this, right? So how did you find that, I guess, first of all? And then second of all, what made you decide to do that?
Well, I had started going to young professionals events back when it was HYPE.
Yeah.
I think in 2019. I was still working for the Kansas Department of Agriculture at the time.
All right.
And really, I just wanted to be involved and make some friends.
Yeah.
And so I started going to those, and I saw it as a good opportunity to meet people, to maybe expose myself to some organizations that I hadn't been involved with before. There's a lot of great organizations around Manhattan, but if you don't know somebody who's in it, it's kind of hard to get into it.
Yeah.
I think of like Rotary and things like that. And so I kind of saw that as an opportunity. And, once the pandemic happened, we had that big kickoff that was really cool.
I remember.
And
believe
then
me, I remember.
And then we didn't do anything for a year.
Yeah.
But it was still a good way to be involved and to volunteer. And it really, I met a lot of really great people, and it did kind of get me in the door to be able to, at least in the community enough to be able to run for city commission. I didn't join HYPE because I wanted to run for city commission, but they kind of went along with each other. And so, I was given the opportunity to have some leadership position there. I was a committee chair for 2 years. And it was I just really wanted to be involved. And that is the mission of HYPE. And I will definitely keep supporting them and hope they keep doing well. Yeah,
the last 2 or 3 years particularly, and it coincides with your service there, it's been incredible to watch that organization grow to where we now have over 300 paid members. There's other people who come to a variety of events. And so that's, for my experience, that's a really large group for a community our size, and something that we should be proud of. And thank you for helping us do that. So as somebody who has multiple experiences, what advice do you have for young professionals who maybe are either leaving the military or leaving the university right now, that are going into the workforce or maybe thinking about starting their own business?
I would say ask as many questions as you can. If you can find a mentor, do that. Sometimes it's a formal program like we have with HYPE. Other times it's just finding that person that you click with and have coffee with, every couple of weeks or once a week or something like that. And you've got to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but you have to put yourself out there. Nobody is going to find you and offer you a position or an opportunity. You really have to be able to find those and ask for them.
I think that's good advice. So are you a podcast listener? Do you listen to podcasts or?
Way too much.
Okay. So give us your top 3 then.
Top 3.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Or give us 2 or 3 that you regularly listen to.
I really enjoy, there's one called Pantsuit Politics.
Okay.
It is two women. They're both lawyers, and they do a really good job of explaining news and stuff like that. Freakonomics is a great one.
Sure, yeah.
They have really interesting
you're an economist.
Exactly.
Right? That's what you do.
There's one. It's called Behind the Bastards, if I can say that on here. It's
a PG show.
Yeah. So it's a history about it's a podcast about the worst people in history.
Okay.
So really politics, history, sports. Tony Kornheiser, I listen to his show every time he puts one out. It's really good. So
yeah, he's been around a long time. As a former sports writer, I have followed Tony Kornheiser for a long time. Well, that is the end of our sort of main segment. We're moving now into the rapid fire section, which has become pretty infamous for some really cool answers. But we try to go through these quick. However, if something interesting comes up, we may pull the thread on that a bit. And find out, because we've learned a lot about people. We learned a lot more about people, I think, through these questions than we have through the other questions.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Number 1, do you have any hidden talents?
Yeah. So I can kind of play the drums. Mediocre. Okay. I can play the drums. All right. I'm not a great drummer, but I do have a drum set at my house, and tap around every once in a while.
So you're the second person we've had in our 20 under 40 group that's their hidden talent.
All right.
So that's an interesting. Did you play in a band?
I did have a band in high school.
Okay.
We played when we weren't doing other things that high school boys in a band will do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun.
So what kind of music was it? These are things that interest me.
Yeah. No. Rock. We were all into, classic rock and stuff and jam band stuff. So.
All right. And the name of the band was?
Tall.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty cool name. I like that. What movie have you seen the most?
Dumb and Dumber.
Okay. Yeah. That's on a lot of people's lists like that. What was your first job?
I worked at a movie theater called Tinseltown, and I worked in the concession stand. So I sold popcorn and soda and stuff like that.
That was at Colorado Springs?
Yep.
What skill would you most like to learn?
I would love to learn how to play the banjo.
That's interesting. Me too. Yeah, it is big because so my dad and my grandpa can both play. And I think that is one of the coolest sounding instruments.
Yeah. It's so relaxing.
I know, but apparently it's really hard to keep in tune. Like like banjo players are constantly tuning.
I believe it.
Apparently it's a real challenge, but maybe we should just find somebody and we just all get in a class and learn that, because I'd be in for that.
Yeah.
Where's the coolest place you've traveled?
So I've gotten to go a couple places. I spent a year in Korea. The Secret Service has military support for explosives detection. And so when I was in EOD, I got to travel to Mumbai. Then Vice President Biden went there for a trip, and I got to be a part of that detail. And that was probably... Yeah, it was a really cool experience.
Nice. What did you do as a teenager that makes you cringe now? And you're not allowed to say drum in a band. It has to be so good. That's actually really cool.
I made hemp necklaces, like the macrame hemp. Yeah.
That's very rock and roll there. What is the most ridiculous thing you believed as a child?
Okay, so my dad told me that when you land in an airplane and it gets really loud, that is the sound catching up to the plane. And I believed that until my junior physics class.
Parents are pretty cruel with that kind of stuff, aren't they? All right. How do you deal with work stress?
I take my dog for a walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty common. What advice would you give the 19-year-old you?
Boy, I want to say don't do anything different, because then I wouldn't end up here, but also maybe be okay being independent and by yourself.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Last question, and it can be one answer or two. First and favorite concert?
My first concert was Weird Al Yankovic at Colorado State Fair. Actually, he is the only person that I've seen more than once. I've seen him 3 times.
I love
most recently a couple years ago. My favorite concert would probably be Paul McCartney.
Oh, sweet.
That was like 20 years ago.
Okay.
But it was incredible.
Did he do Beatles songs and?
Yeah, it was his first tour singing doing Beatles songs. So that was pretty special.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, Peter, thanks for being on with us. Congratulations on your 20 under 40. Thanks for everything you've done for the chamber in your time there. Thanks for your service to the commission. I do want to say, and we talked about this beforehand, when we have elected officials on, we want to know more about them as individuals. And so when somebody's listening going, why didn't you ask Peter about this? And why didn't you ask Peter about that? That's not what this show's about. This is about learning more about our members and people who are engaged in the community as people.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you coming on with us and so we can learn more about you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Think MHK, a podcast produced by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. If you enjoyed the Think MHK podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and share it out on your social media channels. Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce.